Hello, and welcome to #SharpSign, the podcast for people that want to know more about music theory. Bam, bam, bam. And that's you, because you're listening to this podcast. This is part 3 of the Element series, and today we will be looking at texture. Woo! Texture refers to the layers of sound in music. In very basic terms, you could describe the texture as thick, where there are lots of layers and lots of different parts or instruments or voices doing different things, and thin, when there are not many layers or things happening. However, for GCSE music, this is these kind of descriptors, thick and thin, are not normally enough. So, let's look at some more GCSE and beyond appropriate ones. The first one we're going to look at today is monophonic. Now, this basically means that there is one single melody line. This will be unaccompanied, there'll be nothing else going on. It is quite unusual, I suppose, to hear this kind of music, but if you literally just imagine somebody practicing their instrument on their own in a room, that will be a monophonic texture, okay? There's no accompaniment, they won't have a backing CD or a piano or anything like that. It's completely just that one sound, just that one instrument. You could remember this if you want to, because obviously we know the word mono means one, because we know things like monobrow, so those people that have got an unfortunate face will have a monobrow, so that's one eyebrow, isn't it? So monophonic, one melody line. Hopefully maybe that'll help you remember it. Anyway, let's listen to an example of some monophonic music.
Incipit lamentatio Ieremie prophete. Aleph. Quomodo sedet sola civitas plena populo, facta est quasi vidua domina gentium, princeps provinciarum facta est sub tributo.
My alarm clock there, everybody, with some Gregorian chant. That's how I wake up every morning, listening to my favourite song. So monophonic, literally one melody line. If you are getting asked about monophonic music, it will either be something like that, to be honest, a Gregorian chant or something, or it would just be a small kind of instance of monophonicism in a piece. So there might be just a moment where one voice sings on its own, or the flute plays a 2-bar solo without anything else. So it may well ask you those kind of things. Okay, let us move on. Funky tunes, damn sure. That's right. Homophonic music. This literally means sounding together. Homophonic. H-O-M-O, phonic. P-H-O-N-I-C. Homophonic music is played in block chords. Homophonic music is also sometimes called chordal music. Within homophonic texture, other devices can be used, such as a walking bass, pedal notes, or drones. Homophonic textures are all based around chords moving together at the same speed. Now, stop the podcast! Stop the podcast! Some foolish people from some unnamed exam boards class homophonic and melody and accompaniment as the same thing. They are not the same thing. However, if you have been taught that they are the same thing, then you should use the word homophonic to also mean melody and accompaniment. Now, in reality, melody and accompaniment is a different thing, because melody and accompaniment is a texture when you can clearly distinguish between the melody and the accompaniment. This could be a pop song. with a solo singer accompanied by a band, or the first violins in an orchestra playing the melody while the rest accompany even. The melody and accompaniment texture was frequently used in the classical period and pretty much every single pop song ever in the whole wide world. So, here are two examples, first of all, of homophonic music moving in chordal movement, and then melody and accompaniment. That's the melody, all right? And the accompaniment is everything else. There's a clear melody, clear accompaniment. Homophonic music is different. However, if you're doing Edexcel music, then all of them are basically called homophonic. So, for whatever reason, not really sure why, they don't seem to distinguish between the two. But there you go. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is polyphonic. Polyphonic, or polyphony, means different sounds or different voices. Polyphonic music has parts that weave in and out of each other. Polyphonic music is also sometimes called contrapuntal music, which is definitely used, especially in Baroque times. So contrapuntal will be used for Baroque music. Polyphonic music may contain an element of imitation, where one voice or instrument copies each other, what's just been played by another, like in London's Burning, which is a round, which uses a lot of imitation to the maximum degree. Here is a polyphonic example. There are lots of examples of polyphony in that example I've just played you, but there are also examples of other things as well, and that's a really key point, is that often music will combine textures together and use a variety of them, especially the more complicated ones like polyphony. It's unusual for a polyphony to be all the way through a piece. And you heard there moments where there's clearly a melody, so it's melody and accompaniment. You heard moments where there was several different things going on in different parts, particularly listening to the harpsichord playing something different to the strings. And then there's moments where actually just the strings were playing chords, so that would be homophonic as well. So you got a bit of everything there. So if that wasn't clear, have a listen back to it. Yes. The next one that we're going to talk about is heterophonic. Now, this texture is a variation, really, of a single melody line. It is not used very often, and it is where the melody is played over the original melody. So there's basically two melodies that are very, very similar happening at the same time. It's often found in music called gamelan, which is from Indonesia, and I'm going to play you a little bit of that in a second. And yeah, it's not a very well-known texture. It wouldn't, unlikely, I would say, it is to appear, but you never know. So here is a little example of some gamelan music to hopefully help you understand that. Actually made myself jump listening to that through headphones because it sounded like there was someone attacking me from behind. So if that was also your experience, apologies for that. But hopefully you heard bits there where you heard the same melody kind of similarly played but not the same. That's heterophonic, but there's also bits of polyphony in there because there was moments when there was all sorts of carnage going on. Sounded like somebody was building something. The final texture that I'm going to highlight today is antiphonal texture. So in this texture, it is basically where there is one group of instruments or voices, usually placed in different parts of the concert venue often, and they will dialogue between themselves. So the melody or the melodic ideas will be passed between maybe different sections of an orchestra, or different voices, or different groups of people, or whatever it might be. So that is antiphonal texture. And obviously that can appear within songs as well. So I'm going to play you an example of that now. But not quite now. Because, just before I do, I just want to explain that the start of this clip is very much polyphonic texture. And antiphonal really is a polyphonic kind of texture. So you'll hear a lot of polyphony, and then hopefully you'll hear the different string instruments being passed the tune. So listen out for that. Okay, so that is the main textures, really. I mean, the main ones, to be fair. Monophonic, homophonic, melody and accompaniment, heterophonic, and polyphonic. Maybe on antiphonal. I don't know. It's up to you. BBC Bite Size, by the way, describe texture quite nicely. They say that monophonic is like a single strand of spaghetti. They say that homophonic is like the spaghetti all in the packet. So they're all like in line together, like chords, kind of. And they say that polyphonic is when you've cooked your spaghetti and it goes on your plate and it all kind of interweaves with each other. So that's quite nice. Shout out for BBC Bite Size, by the way. A great resource. You should make use of it. Cool. So I've mentioned a few other textural features there, because you could be asked a question and talk about texture, and you might not have enough to say from what I've said so far. So some other things that you can say are such as these. So there's unison, which is where the music is all played at the same time by multiple instruments or voices. So it's all exactly the same, but by different people. So everyone plays the same notes, the same kind of pitch. There is octaves, where people play the same notes, but maybe at different pitches. So that can sound quite a powerful texture. So you get the same notes, same rhythm. So not heterophonic, but same notes, same rhythm at the same time. If one of them was out of time or one of them wasn't quite right, that would be then heterophonic. So that's the difference. Chordal, we mentioned before when we were talking a little bit about homophonic music. It's essentially what it is. If you imagine instruments playing different notes at the same time, moving in chords, sometimes there's a melody that moves slightly differently as well, which is why it gets confused with melody and accompaniment. It is a bit of a kind of minefield. It's a bit annoying. There you go. Imitation, we did talk about. We mentioned that, and we said that imitation is where a part will be copied. Maybe somewhere else in the orchestra, maybe by a different voice, maybe by something else, but it's copied, it's taken from somewhere else. A bit like a repeat, but passing it around to people. Counter melody hasn't been mentioned. So a counter melody is essentially when there is you have a melody and you have something else that's maybe not quite as important, but it's another melody kind of going against that one, countering it, going against it at the same time. So there'll be two melodies almost at the same time. But there is always an awareness that there's the main melody, I think, when there's a counter melody. So it's not like there's two equally important melodies. I think there's always the melody, the tune that people know and recognise, maybe it's been heard before, and then a counter melody will be like on top or something different. Likewise with a descant, I mean, you think of these mainly in Christmas carols. When it comes to the final verse, the highest voice will play something a little bit different. So maybe the trumpet would play something different. Maybe the soprano singers would just sing a different tune over the top, and might have slightly different rhythms as well. And it's just a new kind of melody. It's a new idea at that point. We talked about round and we talked about canon. So a round is where, like London's Burning, you would sing in a round. One person starts after the other, singing exactly the same thing, just later. Canon, similarly, but talked about in more musical terms, in terms of not singing as in instrumental. But similarly, instruments will start one after the other in canon, playing the same thing. Perhaps not at the same pitch, but often it is as well. Alberti bass is when it goes do 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 do. Okay, so if you've ever heard that before, or if you've ever heard a piano piece and that's in the bass line, that's called Alberti bass. Stab chords, used a lot in jazz and musical theatre, and they are, if you get an orchestra or a large group of people and they play a chord but it's short and sharp, and it might just be kind of on the beat or like on the first beat of each bar, so like a bam, and then some singing bam bam, do do do, or bam bam. That would be kind of stab chords, you would call that. And then a walking bass is often associated with blues music. It's where the bass line kind of goes up and down in pitch with the notes from the chord of whatever is being played as well. And that is a feature. So that could feature in homophonic music quite easily. And you'd still call it homophonic music if everything else is moving at the same time. I can appreciate there's a lot of confusion there and there's a lot of key words. Like I've said before, probably best to listen to this with a bit of a pad or a pen and paper so you can make some notes, because there's loads of keywords I've just gone through there and I've gone quite quickly through those just then. Hashtag best guess. Ooh, that's some real reverb. The eagle-eared people amongst you will notice that is slightly different to the old hashtag best guess, the way I'm saying it, because I had to re-record it because I accidentally deleted it, which is very annoying. However, that is a me problem and not a you problem. So there you go. Anyway, today's hashtag best guess for texture is going to be either one of these two. Melody and accompaniment. If you hear a pop song, if you hear a song or any piece of music where you can clearly hear the melody, and that will often be the case, then you are going to say melody and accompaniment. If you are doing Edexcel music, then you are going to say homophonic. And actually, for your set works on that one, nearly all of them are homophonic at some point, if not all the way through. So that is today's hashtag best guess. Hashtag best guess. And that is the end of today's podcast. I hope you found it enjoyable, interesting, hilarious, wonderful, great, the best one yet, all those things. But yeah, I really hope that you are learning something through these and they are in some way helpful. Otherwise, I am wasting my time and that would be a big shame. Anywho, thank you very much and we'll see you again next time.